Cool. Well, welcome everyone to the Cluster API Provider AWS office hours on Monday, the 27th of June, 2022. A reminder that we abide by the CNCF Code of Conduct, so please be kind to each other. I've just shared the meeting notes in this window, but I will also put a link into the chat window. If you can please add yourself to the attendee list and any topics you would like to discuss in this meeting. And a quick reminder to use the raise hands feature of Zoom if you'd like to talk. Although if it's a small meeting, then we can probably do away with the formality. Let's check the participant list. I don't see anyone that is new, so normally it would be a time to introduce yourselves, but we can probably carry straight on in. So there are no PSAs this week. There was one action item on me from the call 2 weeks ago, and that was to look into how EKS Cuttle is going to handle the load balancers for outposts. I haven't done this, and that's mainly because we haven't got access to we've literally just got access to the outpost environment this week. So I will do that for this week in time for the meeting in 2 weeks' time. So moving on to the agenda items, mine is first again. So there is I've created a discussion to track items that we would like into the next release. I've named it the 1.5 wish list. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be that version, but if we could all add in issues and PRs, mainly PRs that we would like in the next release. So Def, I don't know if you wanted to cover what we talked about with regards to the release branch and the new version of CAPI, putting you on the spot.
Sure. So we created release 1.5 branch to keep merging these wishlist items to the 1.5 before the release. The reason for that is we are gonna try to use bump our cluster API version to 1.2.0, which is a big change. So we wanna start early. They just got beta release that we wanna try with Kappa. So any feature that we merge to main, and if we want to get it in release 1.5, we need to cherry pick it to 1.5 branch.
Cool. Yeah. So if there's any specific features you'd like or PRs reviewing, if you can add them to this, obviously because there are 50 PRs open at the moment, but if there's specific things that you want in the next release, please definitely highlight them here so we know where to focus our attention on. Ankita, so I think some of what we just talked about rolls into your next item, but do you want to go ahead? Go for it.
Sure. Yep. So I just wanted to ask if we are planning the CAPI version bump along with the controller runtime and the Kubernetes version. So just wanted to know the information, like what is the plan? I think Serif put a link for controller tools, but are we doing the release with the cluster API version bump, or how it will be?
I can take this one. So there is another release 1.1.3 that we didn't bump our dependency. And I think we can do it for release 1.5 branch. But for the main branch, we are targeting to bump cluster API to 1.2.0. So also there were some problems about testing Kubernetes 1.24 because of all the controller runtime upgrades. I have an open PR regarding that. I'm not sure if we want to make it work for 1.5 release. Probably we do, since we are gonna release it since 1.24 it has been around for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, if that is the case, then yeah. Actually, considering that we don't have a breaking change with the main branch, since we don't have an API version difference between release 1.5 and main branch, there's no way we can test both. We don't have tests for release 1.5. Even though we make it work for 1.24 Kubernetes version in release 1.5, there's no way we can test it. So we don't need to worry about it, and directly we can try to make it work with the main branch, I think.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think that's helpful. Thanks, Sarif.
Brilliant. Austin, you have the next agenda item.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
We can, yeah.
Okay, yeah, hi. I missed the introduction step. This is my first time here. I'm Austin. I'm from the team that owns the no termination handler on AWS. And yeah, I was just commenting because I wasn't able to join last SIG meeting, but I listened in and I saw that something that was discussed was for AWS machine pools, spot instance support would be delivered in phases, and specifically it would be delivered after certain event handling like spot interruption, ASG, Lifecycle was supported along with corresponding drain logic. And my question for y'all was if y'all would be open to implementing the spot support alongside or before the drain logic for users that would like to use CAPI and also have either their own custom draining logic or are using third-party solutions like no termination handler.
Yeah, I don't necessarily see any issues with that. I think it was, Sadef, can you remember the context?
Yeah, so actually this is a good point. During this development, we need to consider external draining logic and should be able to turn off our custom draining logic if users do not want to use it. Yeah, so the reasoning behind we wanted to do this in phases is that simply because we are not installing AWS not termination handler as Kappa project. That's why we didn't want to like release a feature that doesn't do the draining and support the problems that might have happened because of the coming down and up the new instances. So, but are there any use cases? You mentioned the external draining. If users want to use external draining, then we won't need to actually wait for custom draining. That makes sense to me. What do you think, Ankita? Ankita was working on this, I think.
Okay, yeah, I think I didn't explore the spot instance support part much, but yeah, if we are considering the custom draining logic, then I think, yeah, I mean, we can use the AWS termination handler with the spot instance support. So, but anyways, I'm most probably this week I'll be coming up with the events bridge graduation ADR, so that I think it can give us much more clarity on how to proceed maybe.
So as far as I checked, it is not very complicated to add spot instance support. It is just another field in launch template configuration. It should be straightforward as far as the last time I checked. So
Yes,
actually we can
the
do
spots
that.
instance support should be straightforward. Only the draining logic would be like need some relooking. So
Okay. By the way, Austin, would you be interested in working on this issue if we want this in 1.5 release, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely be happy to help contribute that. And if you did have, I know no termination handler was mentioned last week as well. So if there were any discussions or design around the logic between switching on and off, which draining logic to use. I'm happy to be part of that discussion as well.
Yes, actually, that would be great. We were talking about using some of the logic already exists in AWS node termination handler during our design, because this is what pretty much we are gonna do as well during the draining. So any help would be great in the design of it. Maybe you can work with Ankita on this for the first. Then we are gonna switch phases. We are first gonna enable spot instance, but with lots of warnings that we are not doing the draining unless there's an external draining binary installed. And then the next step will be graduation of event bridge and then adding the custom draining logic.
Okay, that makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we should capture that in the notes as well. If someone, oh, I can type that up in a bit. Cool. So Abhinav, you have the next item.
Yep. Thanks, Richard. Hello, everyone. So I'd just like to follow up on this PR that I made for customizing the AMI name format. I would like to share my screen as of now. Is it possible?
Let me know that you co-host.
Thanks.
Yeah, go for it.
Great. Yeah, thanks. I hope it's visible right now.
It is.
Great, thanks. So recently I just made this PR so that we can customize the AMI name format. And this was primarily just to execute the AMI listing logic within our own custom AMI builder, like the image builder logic, right? So previously I made this PR so that we could implement this within the cluster AWS ADM itself. But due to some package import issues, I just decided that it might take a long time until the next published release. So it might also take some time for this logic to be implemented on the Go package website, right? So I just implemented it directly within our own like image builder logic. So using the AWS SDK, of course. So I was wondering if we still need to like implement this within cluster AWS ADM, like what kind of use cases we have as of now, or if like we had already decided, because I don't know if there was much follow-up on this. I think Sadaf, you had some questions about the reason behind why this was getting implemented. Can you please like once again point out what the actual concern was?
Yes, so when the AMI, we don't pass the AMI format, there's an if condition. Can you go a little bit up?
Yep.
Yes, here. So if AMI name format is not provided, we all, as I mentioned, we already have default AMI name format set by the generate AMI name. I didn't quite understand why we need to set this to a different AMI format here.
Are you talking about the like constant that has already been set internally?
I mean, we shouldn't change any logic when the AMI name format is not passed, because previously we didn't have this flag and we should be backward compatible. So whatever it was doing before, it should keep doing it. Is it? So if, for example, we don't pass the AMI name format, it returns all the AMIs, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's going to behave the same way as it did earlier. The only difference is that if we provide this flag, then we are able to customize this format as well. So this base ON does this, and this KH version is actually implemented within the Go struct internally. It's a type definition. So I think this is pretty much global. These are the only two flags that we can configure in the AMI format, AMI name format. But apart from that, let's say that we have some prefixes or suffixes along with this naming format, or if in the future stages, if we decide to like kind of tweak a bit of changes during testing phases, then we can just provide this flag. We can change this naming format internally so that we don't have to internally tweak the logic during our testing phases, right? So we don't have to just go about changing the source code just to make a few tests. That's what I was wondering. So this is the entire purpose of this PR. Everything else is pretty much the same. So if that was your concern, then I think we are pretty much fine with that.
Okay, but you said you already implemented this in the AMI lookup logic because you will have to wait because you are using the cluster AWS ADM binary, not the library, right?
So the binary implementation is entirely gone since I've implemented this in the source code itself. So right now I'm using AWS SDK instead of cluster AWS ADM. And that's how we are getting the list of images as of now. So it will fetch the credentials from the system itself. We don't have to pass it anything externally. Apart from the like GitHub action code, we have to provide the credentials within the GitHub repository secrets, as of now at least. And when we are going to implement this on Prow, I think Prow, the machine that's running Prow would have the credentials set up already, right? So
Yes,
we'll
yes.
be fetching the credentials from there only.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we can, I'll take another look at the PR, but since it is no longer blocker for you, then it is good.
All right. So just a little bit of question. Apart from this PR, are there any improvements that we have to do on the proposal end as well?
So last time we chatted, it was not working on my account, and was it in working condition right now on my account, not on your branch, but on my branch?
On your account, was I didn't get it. Like, what was the actual issue? Why?
Oh, so post submit job was not working, and you were gonna debug it, and after some time you mentioned it is working on your branch repo, but so the reason we are testing it on my branch, by the way, is that the GitHub token is not working in cluster API provider AWS repository because of the permissions that we asked you, Richard. We still couldn't figure out a way out, so that's why I'm gonna make it work on my branch, and maybe eventually we will need to make it a periodic job on the Pro and not have GitHub actions at all.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah, doesn't it? You won't have the same restrictions.
Yeah, since the logic will be exactly the same, for example, other than the logic of creating a PR, the rest will be same in the Pro as well. So we don't lose anything.
It would be good to go find out what that setting is at the organization level that is stopping this working, because it's worked in other orgs, hasn't it? When we like, I created an org and it generated the token that allowed it. So I'm just curious, well, did we actually get to the bottom of what that actual setting was that was stopping it?
Not really. So I reached, there's a specific channel for the GitHub. So let me see.
I was like, GitHub management, is it?
Yeah. I asked there few times, but I couldn't find someone that knows what's going on. So maybe they have a meeting we should attend to and ask.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe you can take that as a an action item.
Oh, I checked their page. I'm not sure. I don't remember seeing a meeting as well. But at least I can bump the question.
I guess we have to like personally reach out to the maintainers of this like Slack channel or this project, the ones who actually manage the GitHub infrastructure, I guess, and manage the policies on the enterprise account. I think that would be more.
Yeah, I would say it would go a lot better if we actually went to them saying we need this setting changed in the org to allow our GitHub actions to run, as opposed to please can you help us debug this? And this may take a long time to debug. If there was a way for us to work that out, we could set up our own org and then maybe see what the setting was.
So I'm not sure if since it is an org level setting, all the Kubernetes 6 settings will be changed. So this is a pretty big change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas with Prow, I guess it's localized, isn't it?
Yeah. I can create an issue as an action item to GitHub to their repo.
Okay.
I think it is gonna be the Kubernetes org repo.
I just had one question. If we were going to shift from GitHub Actions to Prow itself for like creating the pull requests, then I guess we will have to change the credentials in Prow from time to time in case one of the maintainers who is actually handling the Kappa action bot steps down, right? In the near future. That would be one of
Actually, we don't need to create the PR if we are gonna run this on Prow. So it can periodically run as a periodic test, like job. We are not gonna have pre-submit or post-submit job. We are gonna run everything from creation of the images, testing, and publishing in a single workflow as a periodic job.
I see. Yeah, I think that, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think the main reason why we implemented it on GitHub itself was to customize the specific flags, like the container arguments. So
yeah, this is the most. I mean, this is a workaround. If we cannot make it happen, I think our design makes a lot of sense and is more flexible and makes maintainers see what is going on, which images are published. We have more control over. But if we cannot make Kubernetes 6 to change that setting, then we have this option.
I kind of figured out there was actually one way in which we could get this expedited. I think we had to create an issue on the like one of the Kubernetes SIGs. I'm not sure which it was, like one of the Kubernetes SIG projects, which was just focused towards these kind of issues. Either it was some community related or like infrastructure related repository. I can just kind of get back and see which one it was. But for concerns like this, I think we can create a issue on that repository just to get these like policy issues fixed.
I think it is Kubernetes/org.
Yep, let me see if that is. Yeah, I think, yeah, it was this one.
So, or we can ask in the GitHub management Slack channel. If you want to take this as action item, yeah, that would be great to create an issue.
Yeah, sounds good. I think not we, but I think I personally reached out to Arnaud during KubeCon, but since everything was like pretty much packed during KubeCon, so people were not able to respond as efficiently. So yeah, we can just follow up again on that issue, and let's see.
Actually, if you have a connection there, can you follow up with them? Because
yeah, sure.
I remember you were chatting on DM that maybe you may get a response. Yeah, see, there's no meeting in this page. That's what I checked.
Yeah,
I don't think they have a meeting. Yeah.
But yeah, I can see a lot of issues here. Create GitHub app and GitHub action to automate the bug triage project beta. So since it's also one of the, it's partially related to our concern as well, right? Since we have to implement the GitHub action as well as the GitHub application, right? So I believe this is the place that we have to go about, apart from reaching out to the maintainers personally. So yeah, I will once again DM them. I will try to like kind of get a response on that. They also informed me about like the org settings were not exactly having any issues. I think Arnaud told me like there was no, these settings were pretty much appropriate within the organization for our repository. and even he was not able to get what the actual issue was at that time. But yeah, maybe we can just get around it once again. We can just kind of follow up again. It was pretty
Okay, sounds
weird
good.
that
Feel free to loop me into any messaging as well.
yeah, sure. Okay,
Thanks.
about the implementation, on your personal repository, maybe let's follow up once again on that, and we can go about the entire process once again.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Abhinav.
Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Abhinav. All right, let me share the screen again. So Sadef, you have the next item.
Yes, I went over the PR. It looks good. I added a few comments. I didn't publish it yet. Just one question regarding the test though. So I think you are going to edit to test infra as a separate job.
Yep.
Because of the flag change.
That's right.
So since we will probably need this test in the unmanaged cluster side as well.
Of course we would, yes.
Then it will be like 2 additional jobs. As a follow-up to this PR, how about we patch the deployment of Kappa Manager with the additional flag and then restart the
Oh, yeah, I quite like, yeah.
But that won't work because we parallelized the test, right? So
Yeah. I think, the reason I did it as a separate job, I did have it as, one job, but yeah, like you said, it's the flag gets, has to be enabled. And then, but I thought that once we're happy with it, we can then merge it in, can we?
by the way, how about we enable this flag for all the tests? Because if we don't have an additional service type load balancer service, it won't do anything.
True. Yeah, it won't do anything. No, that's true. Yeah, it won't do anything. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to test that it would still function if it was turned off as as it previously has functioned. We could, I guess, just add one new job for both the additional managed and unmanaged test. I could rename it and just say external resource garbage collection tests, and it will just test both sides. Would that work? I think it would, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. I'm just thinking about if we can add this test to self-managed test, because there will be in the self-managed test, there's a different management cluster we are moving. So, but self-managed test is taking already too much time. I'm not sure if we want to complicate this further.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for we can decide on this later. It's just I just wanted to bring this up. Yeah.
But I think you actually you've made a good point that I've missed something here, which is I need to add a unmanaged cluster test for this, don't I? Which I haven't done. So
yeah, since this is gonna follow the same path with EKS, I think we can do it as a follow-up PR.
Are you sure?
Yes. Since we want this in for 1.5, we don't want to delay.
Okay, I will. I'll create an issue then for that. My pen's cool. Yeah, cheers, Sadef. Appreciate that.
I had a question about that PR, the functionality. If the workload cluster if the workload cluster API is not available, and so the controller is not able to even query, right, to list the services that might be of type load balancer, what happens? What are the options that the user has at that point?
Interesting. Yeah. So at the moment, the way that it's implemented is it will essentially just go into a reconciliation loop. It will fail to get that list because it can't get the remote client, I guess, and then it will return an error from reconciliation, and then it will go back round and try. So I guess you could end up in a circle where it's continually trying to delete, but because it can't get to the cluster and list.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause I think there are a couple of cases that would be good to think about. One case is I don't have any services of type load balancer, but I've lost the control plane of the workload cluster for whatever reason, and I wanna clean it up. And in this case, it looks like I don't really have any recourse, and that to me that's not good. That's not a situation that I want to be in. The other situation is I do have services of type load balancer, and I have lost the workload cluster API.
Yep.
And if I sort of force, the garbage collector to just skip its work, and I say, okay, clean up all this network infrastructure, at some point that might get stuck. It probably will get stuck if you're trying to delete the VPC, because there will be the load balancers that but they'll be sort of dangling, right? No, they won't be discovered necessarily, and that's not a fault of Kappa. At that point, it's sort of on you. If the workload cluster control plane is unavailable, it is your responsibility to either sort of vouch for the absence of these other load balancers, or to clean them up yourself.
Yeah.
But it would be good to at least have the possibility, right, of like give the user at least the possibility of that escape hatch of.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's a good point. So I did have a question for that type of scenario, which was essentially because it runs, because it annotates the cluster basically. So I did think about adding a command to cluster AWS ADM that would allow you to remove that annotation, which would then allow the normal cluster deletion process to continue on, with the caveat, like you say, that if it has got external load balancers, the VPC deletion will fail, which was basically where this whole issue started. But we could add that escape hatch there, and it would be, I don't know, cluster AWS ADM skip garbage collection or something. Would that work?
For I guess speaking from the perspective of someone who consumes Kappa without consuming the CLI, as sort of as a as just as an infra provider, and I would, that's not that wouldn't be bad, but I would want to just document maybe the annotation and say, okay, you can also remove this annotation, using any sort of standard API client. If you unless you think there's a reason that we need to hide that.
No, not at all. No.
Detail.
So that does remind me of another issue that I created as a follow-up from this, which may also help into that area. So as a follow-up, I was going to create a way so that you can control how the garbage collector runs, because at the moment you turn it on, and for every cluster that gets created, it marks it and says, okay, this is going to be garbage collected. So as a follow-up, I thought about, well, actually, if we did some sort of cluster selector, so by default, it would select all clusters. But if you didn't want that, then you could modify this cluster selector to say, well, actually, it's not going to apply a garbage collector to clusters with these labels, which we could actually then use in your scenario, is where you would just edit this and then the reconciler would run and go, oh, actually this cluster's no longer going to be garbage collected, so just delete it as normal. And that'd be more of a declarative way to do it.
So I don't know, for some reason the annotation or I guess the label maybe on the AWS cluster object seems like a
Easier.
it's I don't know, it seems to follow like the typical sort of convention and sort of the information, you know, like here's something that affects the cluster that stays with the cluster resource as opposed to having to go, you know, look somewhere else.
Yeah.
So keep the, I don't know. That seems I can offline I'll update, I'll add. Is the PR a good place to
Go for it.
just write this down, or should one of the issues, it looks like, I don't know, there's 17, 18 and 34, 35, but I don't know which.
Maybe on the PR is good, and then
Okay.
we can work out from there. So, and also just to be clear that this if we went down this route, this configuration, this just controls which clusters get annotated or not. So the annotation is still the main driver of whether a cluster is garbage collected or not. This just controls whether we annotate it in the first place. That's the thinking anyway. Yeah. But yeah, all great points.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll follow up on the PR. Thank you for this work. I think it's definitely it's something I think that we're doing kind of out of band, and it would be great to have in band.
Yeah, be also good to get your thoughts on anything else that we should garbage collect. So, you know, things like EBS volumes and stuff like that. So yeah, if you have any ideas or thoughts on that, you know, feel free to just dump them on the PR or one of the issues. That'd be awesome.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'll yeah, anything with the user data, I usually let the user
don't blame you.
Worry about it. I think the load balancers, in my experience, the load balancers are the only resource that can block or does block cleanup of the sort of the cluster networking resources and all of that.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. Yeah, appreciate it, Daniel. In fact, actually, you have the next slide. Oh, sorry, Sadef, you got your hand raised.
Quick question regarding the config. So we are thinking about having a single config per workload cluster. Is it gonna be a single resource?
I envisioned it that it's not required. So if it wasn't there, it would just mark every single cluster as being garbage collected. But if it was there, there would be one per management cluster. So
I see. How about we do it per cluster and we pass that config as a field of the cluster so that we can fine tune if we don't want PVC in a cluster.
That's another option as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Just left. Yeah, Daniel. Sorry about that. It's your turn next.
I started thinking about the I guess AWS API rate limiting issue. It's something that we've been seeing, and as I was looking through the code, I saw that we had introduced some client side rate limiting, which I wasn't aware of before, and I looked on the PR. I didn't really, there wasn't a whole lot of sort of explanation, and I guess I think that the reason we have client side rate limiting is just so that we don't end up making API calls that sort of we know ahead of time would just be rejected as as throttled, or exceeding the rate limit. But as I looked through the code and saw how the rate limiting, or the client side rate limiting, was wired in, and that we have that code, that piece of code actually that you were just looking at, there's we have what looks like a store for each session, and that's where we have these service limiters, which are that's the client side rate limiting. But what I observed is that we have a separate instance of client side rate limiting for each region, cluster namespace. And as far as I understand, the server side rate limits apply to account and region. And so if I have multiple clusters in the same region, in the same account, I think I would end up with these separate client side rate limiting, and then basically I would have on the client side, I would have just it would I would get too many tokens, more than I should have, because I'm getting like a whole I'm getting separate tokens for each cluster. And so I guess part of what I'm asking is, I'm not familiar with sort of this area, is whether my understanding is right or not, if I'm missing something, and if I'm not missing something, then I'll file an issue, and I can follow up with a PR. But I just wanted to get your input.
Cool. Sadef, go for it.
So you are completely right. So there's a shortcoming of this implementation, that it doesn't think about multiple reconcilers, etc. And that is why we still keep seeing API limit exceeded errors. And some time back, we started thinking about caching the calls and doing this in a global manner, but we didn't end up having a design for it. I was looking for the issues. I couldn't find it yet, but I can add to the agenda once I find them. We even had a PR. Oh, okay. I just found the PR. I'm just that is 2996. I'm just adding the here. So basically, by introducing a debouncing window, the aim was to limit the number of calls that we are making without actually thinking about the calls themselves. We were basically limiting the number of reconciliations over a period of time. This is one way to approach this, but I think this is we are not doing a good job in the rate limiting area, and it is pretty open, and there are few ways to achieve it. It would be great if you wanna work on it.
Okay, I'll take a look at that PR. Thank you. Is there I guess is there can we, or do we want to address this specific client side rate limiting issue separately, or does it, I guess it maybe it doesn't have a huge impact, because from what I understand, the client side rate limiting, it sort of it readjusts itself, once there is a request that comes back that says, hey, it's rate limited, then the client side rate limiter, I guess, sort of resets itself to 0 and then starts, refilling its own token buckets slowly. So, but yeah, I don't know if we want to.
So, so the things that we have discussed before is we can reduce the reconciliation of the same objects. We can cache replies. For example, we checked before the number of requests we are making as API calls. Mostly they were same describe heavy calls. So there's, I mean, we can gain a lot by simply caching describe calls across different reconciliation cycles. So we don't need to stick with the client side implementation. I think it would be great to think about the benefits of different approaches like reducing reconciliation of the same objects or caching the responses of the reconciliation of the same object or caching the AWS SDK call responses and maybe implement few of them at the same time to make some improvements gradually. But I mean, right now, I don't see too much benefit we are gaining on the current implementation of the server-side.
This PR, this 2996, I guess it was put on hold. Should I reach out to Shivani and see what if she has a plan for it, or?
So the problem with this PR is that it was considering only debouncing the same objects. So it was not gaining too much benefit. So we got the idea from CAPZ, but CAPZ was trying to solve a particular problem for themselves. They were using features to keep reconciling, and it made more sense for them to debounce the calls.
Okay.
But we don't have features, we don't have constant reconciliations like them. They want to slow down the reconciliations, basically. So it made sense for them, but not particularly makes sense for Kappa at the moment. Maybe you can take a look at the PR. We can make it work for all the namespaces, all reconcilers. Then it makes sense for us.
Okay. So something that I was that I had in mind is and I was going to try this as an experiment because I don't know how many cache I guess cache hits this would result in, but yeah, setting up a cache based on the so there would be a cache for the account, region, API call, and the parameters of the API call. And I guess assuming that we have multiple reconcile loops and they're basically making the same query over and over, that caching that for however, I don't know, 30 seconds or a minute would be effective. But I don't at this point I don't know. It's just something that I thought of experimenting with, and it looks like there's a place to there's sort of a nice place to add this in the code. It's with the custom handlers for the AWS client. So is that something that sounds like it you've talked about before? That kind of account, region, API call, and then the parameters, and so like having a hash map on
So
the
in the
API does.
open PR, I think we are using a global cache. I'm not sure if it is account, it considers account and region, but that has a global cache.
Yeah, I think we'd want to, because the account and region is that's where the rate limiting, that's how the rate limiting is calculated. And yeah, and of course it would be a totally different, I guess, set of data for a different account and different region, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's something I can I'll maybe create an issue, maybe.
Yeah. Good thinking.
Yeah. Also, one more thing. Cache, I think cache really helps, especially when there are errors. So we observed that when there are errors, exponential backup in the controller runtime does not work as expected. For Kappa, for some reason, we didn't debug it further, but probably there are some changes in the objective itself that since there are changes, it keeps reconciling when error happens. So cache will definitely help in negative scenarios. Also, we observed that with our customers that when there's an error scenario, they hit API limit and their other services stop working because of Kappa.
Interesting.
Yeah, a mental model that I had built was, in a reconcile loop, something like, either machine or AWS cluster reconciler. You end up calling different AWS services, right? There's a whole sequence of calls, right? So let's say you have these 10 different API calls during one reconcile loop, right? You make 8 of them. The 9th one hits a rate limit, and the default client only retries 3 times, and it's milliseconds apart. And I mean, there's something we can tweak there that's not exposed anyway. So you make 8 of these or 9 of these calls. The 10th one fails for rate limiting. You requeue, and all of those 8 or 9 calls you've just made, right? They have counted against your request limit, and you're throwing that work away. And that can I think when you have higher concurrency, like 10 machines at a time, which I think is the default, and you're hitting a rate limit somewhere on one call among all of these loops, and you're just having to you're just like you're making it worse on yourself. And maybe a cache would help there.
Yeah, I think so.
Even a local cache helps there, but global cache is definitely the way to go.
Okay, I'll open an issue and follow up there. Thanks everybody for your advice and input.
Yeah, because Daniel, your description also made me think about when we requeue as well. How we don't. I wonder if we do sensible requeue values as well. Like when we are sort of provisioning an EKS control plane, we know it's going to take 8-10 minutes. Yeah, we requeue every 10 seconds, so it goes back round the loop every 10 seconds, doing all of these API calls. So I think there's things we can do there as well, especially if you're operating a large number of clusters. I was just trying to find the bit where we do the requeue, but yeah. Cool. So we are at the end of the agenda. Does anyone else have anything they would like to talk about in the last 3 minutes? Go once, go twice, 3 times. Cool. Well, thank you everyone, and speak to you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.